we look at this scripture, and it seems so appropriate. There's so many analogies we can make. Everybody wants to have that seat at the table. And when we are striving to make the world better, we often talk about how we want more seats at the table. Or we want some people to be at the table who have not been able to have a seat before. Isn't it funny the importance and the respect, the emphasis and attention human beings put on a chair? We talk about great people throughout history, warriors and chieftains, monarchs, and we always talk about where their home base was, where they were set up. We call it their seat of power. You know, this was so-and-so's seat of power for many years, was this city or was this fortress. We even refer to the towns that house our local law courts and our local administrations. We call them our county seats. In business, everyone talks about wanting to have a seat, have a place in the corner office. Everyone wants to be sitting in the boss's chair. Even in our leisure time, that theme shows up. Photo opportunities all the time. Where my brother works in Orlando, there's that lovely castle. And when you go and you eat at the restaurant in the castle, either on your way up or on your way down, you can get a picture in that big, beautiful golden throne. When we were in Michigan this year, we were headed up to the Upper Peninsula. I always like to stop in Mackinac City. And it's very tourist trappy. I know, it's kitschy, I like it. But they keep putting more and more fun stuff in that mall, that little open-air mall. They have one of those Transformers, the big robots, the cars that turn into robots. They've got one of those now you can get your picture with. They've got all these things. They have a throne from a famous TV show there now. And I certainly didn't run knocking other people over to get to it first. When I was on my honeymoon, we were going around Nassau. We took a tour of Nassau in the Bahamas. And when you go to Atlantis, there's a huge line of people, and you can get your picture in Poseidon's throne. It's real big. It's got the trident and everything. You know, even when you go to local family places, half the water parks now, and you go down into the Smoky Mountains to different places, they all have the big Adirondack chairs. You can get 3 or 4 people in. It's a cute notion. It's a fun imagining. Lounging on the throne. Sitting in the big chair. Your backside in an important seat. A seat of honor. In our actual lives today, it's funny that there's not so much pomp and circumstance and when we sit down to eat a dinner. I don't know if it's the rural setting we're in. I don't know if it's just a change of the times. But really, where you sit is not have much to do with your position in society. It has to do with, okay, you're probably sitting by your spouse. Or you have to sit by the kid because if you don't, they're going to put the silverware somewhere funny. Or the food's going to go everywhere. You know, usually if you're talking about someone at the end of the table, or it might be, well, that's where we're going to put Grandpa so he can see everybody. Or we're going to put someone at a special place so they can hear the people around. There's not so much, as I said, pomp and circumstance. Now, a wedding, yes, you're still going to have that table with the bridal party. You're still probably going to have assigned seats. Closer relatives and friends, closer to the party. But, for the most part, a sit-down meal on a Sunday is not that grandiose. But in the time when Jesus was preaching, where you sat was a much bigger issue. This was a time when position was everything. It was also a time full of people who were eager to put themselves in the seats of greatest importance, regardless of whether or not there was someone there already. And so to Jesus' audience, this talk of seats and this talk of exalting oneself must have seemed very appropriate to current events. In the Roman Empire that dominated much of the world, there was no end of people working to place themselves in a certain seat of power. Everyone wanted the place of successor to the Emperor Tiberius. There was a grasping fight for that inheritance, for this position of next in line to an old man who was living in retirement and self-imposed exile. Children, grandchildren, nieces, nephews, and even military leaders plotted against one another. A conflict rife with deaths and disappearances, with questions of corruption and treason. And this sort of trickles out somewhat to the provinces. This affects everyone. There certainly was a lot of things like that going on in Jesus' own homeland. The Roman governor of Judea fought with both the Sanhedrin, who led the temple, and with the remaining sons of Herod the Great, who had gotten part of his territory. These princes, these high priests, and these politicians struggle as they determine the scope of their own power and as they work to impose their authority on one another. And as always, as these things happen, they happen at the expense of the people. It's a tale as old as time. Those in power, too busy fighting for control and asserting their own authority to actually serve those that they lead. Everyone wants the best seat at the table. Everyone wants the respect that is due to them in their mind. We've talked about this before, with Pontius Pilate going after Galileans and harming them just to thumb his nose at Herod Antipas, who was over them, who ruled that region. People in power dipping their hands into temple finances, helping themselves. The Romans imposing their religion in the city of Jerusalem. So many things going on, so many chances at conflict, so many chances to throw your weight around. It's not hard to see why so many of the common people were beginning to flock to this Jesus of Nazareth. Because here was a leader and a teacher, a holy man, who seemed to care about their lives and their futures, not his own glorification. A leader who talked to them, who did not hold court in a seat of power. When you wanted to find Jesus, you didn't go to Nazareth where he'd set up some court for supplicants. You did have to travel, but that was because he was going all over the place. He was going out to the people. He was going and talking with people that the rest of society had turned their backs on. People who were not fit to talk to. He went out and sought. He even broke bread with people who didn't like him. Think about this. Pharisees, these people from the temple, this ruling class, this party of people who are always trying to trip him up. They're always looking for some reason to try to get him arrested, to try to discredit him, and he is in the home of one of them eating. How many of us, if there was someone working so hard to discredit us, to turn people against us, to find some excuse to arrest us, how many of us would be willing to go into their homes, sit down and have a meal with them? That is how he shows himself to them, and it is so important to the people to see how he acts in his example, to see that he walks the walk, that he practices what he preaches. They needed someone to show not only how they should be, but someone to show that they mattered. Someone to meet them on their level. You often wonder how this man with no credentials, with no official approval from the temple, this man who said so many controversial things, who met with so many controversial people, how did he capture so many hearts? And for that matter, why does he still captivate so many people today? Why can someone who has been in addiction for years and years and years, why can they come in and find comfort in this Jesus? Why can so many still have him enter their heart, have this wonderful change? years and years and centuries after. And it's because he understood how a real leader acts. He understood the kind of leader that his followers would need. He understood how one should act when finding themselves a position, how to approach the table. But when you are invited, take the lowest place, so that when your host comes, he will say to you, "Friend, move up to a better place." Then you will be honored in the presence of all the other guests. For all those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. We may not understand the interplay of finding a seat at the table in that time, but we can certainly understand this. And we can certainly apply it to our lives today, because there are so many in our own time who could benefit from this scripture. Many who in our society raise themselves up to places of honor. They have some reason that they are on a higher pedestal. I have a lot of money, so you need to do what I want, because I'm going to give all this money to this cause or to this project, so you need to do what I want. I have a title. Everyone needs to listen up. I have earned a title, and that sets me apart, so you need to listen to what I say. I've lived longer than a lot of you, so I don't need to show you respect. You need to show me respect. So I've lived a lot longer than you. I think I'm tougher than most of you, so I can say anything to anybody. I don't need to watch what I say. I can say anything to anybody because I've been through a lot. I'm tough. I'm a survivor, so I can say whatever I want to anybody. It's a lot of noise. Just a lot of noise. People putting others down to blow their own trumpets. Humbling those around them to exalt themselves. Doing the literal opposite of what Jesus suggests, which is a problem, especially when it's happening among believers. Firstly, because it turns people off from listening to anything that you might have to say, which limits your ability to fulfill the mission of Christ and limits your ability to talk to them about God. If no one wants to hear anything you have to say, they're certainly not going to listen to you talk about God. Secondly, because you are engaged in an action that Christ himself avoided. Christ never took the stance of, I am the Son of God, and so on your knees, peasant. No, Christ took the stance of, well, you know why I'm preaching to you, you know why I'm teaching you, you know what authority I have. God sent me. His status was not something to be lorded over them. It was something to justify what he was doing. He did not hide who he was. He let them know, but he let them know to show why he had the authority to preach and teach and lead. He was a leader with a great amount of authority who didn't flaunt it. He took leadership in a time when leadership was not showing itself to be working very well, and he turned it on its head. He took a new look at it. Perhaps that's what we need. A mental shift, a new way of looking at things. What if we approached those points that we heard a second ago? Those things that people have that they felt made them better than others. What if we approached them from a place of grace instead of a place of pride? Looked at those things with an attitude of gratitude and a servant's heart. What might we see that would be different? God has blessed me with abundance. I have plenty. How can I use what I have to better his kingdom and to help others? My hard work and determination have earned me a position in society. How can I work to be an example to others by doing what is right, even when it's not easy? I've been blessed with many years. I have seen so much. I have learned so many lessons. How can I use my experiences and memories to connect with others? I have survived many hardships and trials. How can I use my experiences to help others who are going through trauma and strife? How can I help them find His light in the darkness they are now facing? Position is everything. And sometimes a shift in our position is needed. When we approach those whom God has called us to help with a feeling of superiority, we are putting ourselves above them. We are grasping for a higher place of honor at God's table without having yet earned it. But when we approach those we meet as fellow children of God, as creations of the Father, just like ourselves, who also have potential, then we don't waste our time scrambling for a certain place at the table. Because we know when the work is done, He'll have a spot ready with our name on it. Friends, let us honor the one who sets a place for us by rising in body or spirit as we sing our final song, Saved by the Blood, number 74 in your hymn.